Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast on this 5th of August 2019. I'm your host, Ril Dil Quinn, discussing the world of sports and pop culture. As always, I am streaming live from my YouTube channel, Real Deal Podcast. Check it out anytime on various platforms as far as this podcast, whether it be Stitcher, iTunes, iTunes, Facebook, Instagram. Certainly, will go. This podcast will go up on YouTube anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes after we're done streaming. Here we are here again on this 5th of August on a Monday, as we try to make sense or recover from a tragic weekend, to say the least, in our country. And we're going to begin in Dayton as well as in El Paso. Of course, you had, as of now, 31 people dead via a mass shooting in both El Paso and Dayton. And this is something that again has become too prevalent in our society. This is something that has just become the norm with in terms of our country. There was a time when you know we were consumed as a country with terrorism, whether especially before and after 9/11. Well, you go back since, and this it really started to me in Columbine back in '99. The majority of these shootings, the majority of the terrorism that's taken place has been domestic and from fellow and other Americans. And that's something that we as a society, we as a country, have to recognize, have to face, and have to deal with. And you look at this, and to me, again, condolences and thoughts and prayers go out to all the families wounded or killed, of course. But that to me is not enough. Just giving thoughts and prayers and you know speaking, giving the normal rhetoric. Well, we need to ban guns, or gun legislation, or harder, stricter gun laws. The stuff that politicians are going to use for the next, to kind of push their campaigns as we head towards 2020 with these elections, with the presidential election. We need action. And the beauty of what I do, what I do every day, as far as working in education, and have been now for a year, for 18 years now, is I get to directly affect mental health of young people, and that's to me where this begins. The two assailants, or the two shooters who chose to take the lives of 31 people, they didn't just become mentally unstable yesterday or last week or 2 years ago. This has started going back years, even before high school, before middle school. This type of behavior does not just come out of nowhere. So to me, it begins with education. I look at where we're at in society. Um, I've been very fortunate to be a part of a program in regards to pro-social, that promotes accountability within children, that promotes communication, that promotes problem solving, that promotes dealing with yourself from the inside out, that promotes self-love. And when you talk about, I read an article this weekend that there have been close to 10,000 preschoolers that have been expelled in our country over the last year or so. 10,000. Think about that for a second. So I'm looking at that and I'm saying there's no way that there's an emphasis being put on mental health, or dealing with behavior. How many programs in schools are eliminating arts? So this to me, it starts with education. I mean, again, you may call me biased because I work in education, but again, I know what a city looks like, a crime-ridden city looks like, versus what in terms of their performance, in terms of their performance, their school performances. You give me a city whose crime rate is high, I'm going to give you a city who has a poor education, poor school system. The two coincide. And again, very easy to talk about. When you talk about gun laws and when you talk about blaming, I mean, you had the president out there blaming video games and social media. Again, don't fall for the okey doke. I mean, I remember there was a time where you had people out there blaming rap videos and rap music or violence in movies for violence what people will go out and do in terms of killing and violence. No, all those things do is expose what's already within. If somebody listens to I don't know, somebody listens to a NWA CD or stream up until this point. I'm sure nobody's listening to NWA tapes, in 2019, and goes out there and kills a cop. There's something wrong with that person. It's not not because of the lyrics. So again, as a society and as a person, you can make the difference. You really can. Hold your politicians accountable for their policies or for what they're going to do about mental health awareness, for what they're going to do about education in America, for what they're going to do. What are their policies on gun violence, gun law, gun legislation? What is their record on that? I don't want to just hear about, oh, guns are bad, or guns are, or our gun laws need to be tougher. Okay, how are you going to make them tougher? What is your plan as a politician? And it's not just with the presidential candidates. You have to hold congressmen, council people, judges, whoever is running for any type of office accountable. And I see, you see the type of guns that were used by the two killers, and these are guns that these are military guns. These are guns with a military background. It took the guy from Dayton, Connor Betts, 1 minute to kill 9 people. 1 minute. The response time by the police actually was quick. I mean, it was within 30 to 40 seconds. I mean, it was quick. Luckily, fortunately, it could have. I mean, more could have died if not the police would have got there as quick as they would have got there in Dayton. So that response time was. I mean, you can't have a faster response time. Same for Las Vegas. Response time by the authorities was quick. Again, you're not going to win the war on guns. It's a billion-dollar business, a multi-billion-dollar business. You almost have a better chance of winning the war on drugs than gun. Well, maybe not, but it's a losing battle in terms of winning the war on guns or drugs. So you're looking to attack aspects of it. You're looking to, limit access to certain weapons. But to me, when I see things like this, I think education, and I think mental health awareness. And those are two things in this country that are failing miserably as a whole. Our education system as a whole in this country is some shit. As a whole, I mean, there was a time when America was top five. Right now, as a whole, as a country, we're not even top 15. So if you listen, if you want to do something as an individual, as a person, if you have kids, you're teaching them about love. You're teaching them about, you're teaching them to love themselves because a lot of most of these killers, are people who are socially awkward, who for the better part don't have friends, who the better part don't have social skills, for the better part hate themselves. Hurt people, hurt people, hurt people. But hold again, the problem with this, you know, we'll talk about this for a couple of days. Maybe because of the 2020 election, maybe it goes a week. Then we'll move on to the next thing, or to the next Trump tweet, or to the next, Twitter beef. So this is something that has to be dealt with from a public education standpoint, from a mental health awareness standpoint. And the idea, I heard somebody say that, mental health, you can't, you shouldn't attribute this to mental health. You don't think that someone who kills people without a blink of an eye has mental health issues? I mean, it goes beyond. We understand the idea of racism and white supremacy. It goes beyond that. For someone to kill 31 people, for two people to kill 31 people, and attempt to kill even more, there's something that's not right within. It goes beyond being a racist or even being a white supremacist. It goes beyond that. So, again, hate to start. I hate to discuss this. I don't hate to discuss. I hate to discuss it to start the program, start the podcast off. But it's something that just had to be talked about, had to be discussed, and had to be addressed. And again, if you're in education, you are at the forefront of this fight. You probably have as biggest impact on this fight than anyone if you're in education. 47 minutes after the 7 o'clock hour on this latest edition of the Ril Dil Podcast. Of course, there was a lot of talk as we try to segue. Do my best to segue into sports. Carmelo Anthony came out last week and was on Eat First Take and publicly spoke for the first time in a long time about his situation and about trying to get back in the league, and basically was begging to get back in the league and chomping at the bit to get back in the league. Here's what I'll say. I think Carmelo Anthony's playing days in the NBA are done. I don't see a place for Carmelo Anthony in the NBA, and there are a number of reasons. One, scoring in the NBA has gone up. Okay, off them probably, they're probably more dynamic offensive players than there has been in the last 20, 25 years. You have a number of guys that can score, and you have even guys on bad teams that score. So you look at what teams need. Teams need guys who can defend multiple positions. You need guys that can defend threes, and undersized fours. You need guys that can knock down 3-point shots. That's why three and D guys are invaluable to a franchise. That's why a guy like Danny Green will be in the league for forever. That's why a guy like Bruce Bowen was able to stay in the league for a long time, despite not having a ton of talent, but he was a top defensive player and was able to make a corner 3-point shot. Even a guy like Tony Allen, who was a terrible offensive player, that guy could lock down, you know, twos, threes, and undersized floor. He was a great on the ball defensive player, and who could care less about scoring. Could absolutely care less about scoring. Look where Carmelo Anthony's at right now in his career. Carmelo Anthony is not a good 3-point shooter. Carmelo Anthony is a guy that needs a lot of shots to score. Carmelo Anthony is a subpar, and that's putting it kind, defensive player. So to me, and Carmelo Anthony is a guy who I'm not paying to see Carmelo Anthony uh, on a bad team. Like he's not putting the asses in seats. You couldn't even sell him as a sideshow. Now maybe he can go overseas and score like 60 or 70. I mean, if Jimmy Fredette could average 40 or 50 in overseas, then we know Carmelo could do that over in China or somewhere, not in the NBA. And I'm thinking about, the word blackballed, and that was, that's or this conspiracy, the so-called conspiracy to keep Carmelo Anthony out of the league. And I'm like, why? Why would it? Why would and why would anyone want Carmelo Anthony or care that much that Carmelo Anthony was not in the NBA? You're telling me that Mike D'Antoni has that much pull to where other coaches are listening to him and saying, a guy who's never been to the NBA Finals, hasn't won a championship. You're telling me other organizations are listening to Mike Dan or taking Mike D'Antoni's. If Mike D'Antoni is putting it out there, let's assume for argument's sake that he's shitting on Carmelo Anthony's name. I don't think Mike D'Antoni. I know Mike D'Antoni is not that respected to a point to where if a team felt like Carmelo Anthony could help them, that Mike D'Antoni's words or thoughts are going to keep him out the league. Again, there's no reason whatsoever that the NBA would blackball Carmelo Anthony from playing basketball. When Barry Bonds last season, he was about 41, 42 years old. He actually had, the year he broke the all-time home run record, he actually had 26 home runs that year, and probably could have had another 2 or 3 years, minimum 2 years where he could have played baseball. His contract was up after 2007, and after that, no one wanted to deal with everything that came with Barry Bonds as far as the scrutiny, with the steroid use, with that type of attention, that type of energy. No one wanted to deal with that. So that was understandable. And again, he was 41. He was about 42 years old. So people were like, you know what, we're good. San Francisco had moved on from that. They rebuilt the team, ended up winning some championships, and kept it moving. So I can understand Barry Bonds not getting a chance, despite being a productive player, do the intangible things. Contenders need players that can guard multiple positions. Look who just signed a 4-year, $100 million extension. Draymond Green. Draymond Green is a horrible shooter. He's a terrible shooter. He doesn't shoot mid range. He doesn't shoot threes well. But Draymond Green is an elite defensive player, playmaker that will do all the dirty work. Does not care about diving on the floor, guarding the other team's best player, top players, perimeter wise, guarding, getting knocked around in the post. Or you had to be a high energy, high motor guy. Montrezl Harrell for that instance, for example. Or what Kendrick Fareed used to be. Kenneth Fareed used to be. That's not Carmelo. Carmelo's 34, about to be 35. 35, 36. He's not a high motor. He's never been a high motor guy. That's never been his game, per se. Never been a high energy, that type of player anyway. Because again, I just don't see any reason why a team would sign him. Again, I don't think he's being blackballed. I don't think I just there's just not a place for him right now in 2019. And he's an aging player on top of that. And again, this is not it's not just the NBA. This it's his own, you know, friends. Like none of his friends, whether it's Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, or LeBron James, none of them have reached out to Carmelo in terms of signing him, in terms of getting him on a team. That should tell you something. I mean, LeBron James has had multiple opportunities to uh, to get Carmelo to have Carmelo signed. I don't think Carmelo's not gonna be a Laker this year. I would be shocked if he was. It would have happened already. The Lakers have one open roster spot left. They're not signing that. I mean, if it was going to happen, they would do it right now. They would do it today. What would they be waiting for? It's not a matter of contract, negotiating the contract. He's gonna sign for the minimum, and he does. I don't even think he cares about the money at this standpoint. He's made a ton of money. He's a good businessman. He's made not a number of endorsements. He's fine with money. I don't think he's worried about another paycheck. I mean, he's not going to get another big paycheck, but I don't even think he cares about that at this point. Listen, I don't necessarily knock Carmelo Anthony. I don't think Carmelo Anthony necessarily did anything wrong. I just don't think he's never been an intangible. He's never been a player that was built on intangibles. He's never been a player that was, you know, could defend multiple positions. He's never been a great 3-point shooter. He does not have the necessary skill set to hang around the NBA. He doesn't. I mean, Vince Carter, I know Vince Carter was willing to just be happy with being on a roster. Like he didn't care about you want to look at Vince Carter. Vince Carter has been when's the last time Vince Carter played on a relevant team? What, the 2014 with Dallas years back when they almost took out San Antonio in the first round of the playoffs. Like Vince Carter's been on a number of just awful teams that just don't matter in terms of being contenders or even making the playoffs for that matter. And again, Vince Carter's a guy that's going to do, hey, whatever it takes for me to have a roster spot. Vince Carter's going to do that with no problem. I don't care if I might have 8 straight DNPs. I might play 20 minutes for a particular game, 2 straight weeks. He's going to do whatever it takes just to be on the roster. And let's not, again, and one thing that has kind of been overlooked, let's not pretend like Carmelo Anthony didn't get a chance with Oklahoma City. He didn't get an opportunity with Houston. His reputation coming out of New York, once he was done, once his career with the Knicks was done, his reputation wasn't the greatest coming out of that situation. Oklahoma City and Houston gave him opportunities, and it didn't work out. So I think that again, I think his career. I think his career is done. I know he denies about saying anything about farewell tour. Yeah, listen, he's not on that level of stardom, of NBA stardom where we need to say goodbye to Carmelo Anthony. We don't. I mean, the game. Trust me, the game will move on without Carmelo Anthony. The NBA doesn't need Carmelo Anthony. It just doesn't. I mean, Carmelo Anthony's going to the Hall of Fame as well as he should. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He, 10-time All-Star. Won number of 3 gold medals. Uh, 25,000 points. So his legacy, as far as his legacy, is the fact that he's a Hall of Famer. His legacy is the fact that he's a Hall. That is his legacy. But again, the one thing about Carmelo, I've never been someone who has unfairly judged Carmelo as in relation to the draft class that he came in with. I never put him on the LeBron James, Dwayne Wade level. He's not on their level, to be honest with you. Think about LeBron James. He's not even on Dwayne Wade's level. I mean, Dwayne Wade was the best player on a team that won a championship and was Finals MVP. I mean, listen, I think Carmelo uh, falls under the category of Hall of Famer, um, franchise player in terms of a guy who you could make the playoffs with as your best player, but was never going to be the guy on the best player on the team that could win a championship. Maybe in his prime, he could have been the second best guy on a team that could win a championship, but he was never going to be the guy that can push a franchise that you can get to the finals with, or win a championship with. And those guys are few and far between. Those are rare players. Like those guys just don't. The majority of those guys just don't exist. So if his last game was with the Houston Rockets, and it was a hell of a career. Listen, I, don't take anything away from what Carmelo has accomplished. He's a national championship player in college as a freshman. He was the best player in the country that year, minus LeBron James coming out of high school, but the best player in the country in college basketball that year by far. It's not even close. By far, he was the best player in college basketball. Even better than Dwayne Wade that year. As good as Wade was, Carmelo Anthony was by far and away the best player in 2003. Led Syracuse to a championship as a freshman. Came into the NBA and was the best player on two teams that made the playoffs, whether Denver as a Denver Nugget and as a early on in his New York Knicks career. Mistake that Carmelo Anthony made, and maybe he regrets it, maybe he doesn't, is he had an opportunity to choose winning over money and still get paid, and he chose money. He could have been the third wheel on the Miami Heat in 2010 instead of Chris Bosh. He chose to sign a long-term contract, and that set the tone for basically the rest of his career as far as chasing the money. So he chose money over winning. Um, Playing again, his career might look a lot different as you know the third or possibly, who knows, third or second best player on a Miami team that would have been competing for championships. So I don't know if he regrets that, but that's the one thing. If you want to knock Carmelo Anthony for anything, you can certainly knock him because he should have and could have and should have been that third wheel on that Miami team. There's no two ways about it. And again, that money that he took, he could have easily made that up. Being part of a championship team would have made that up alone in terms of just even that much more endorsements. And again, this is a smart. This is like Carmelo's a smart guy when it comes to business and investments and things of that nature. You will not be reading about Carmelo Anthony going broke in the next 5 or 10 years. This is not going to happen. But he chose money. He chose the money. So staying with the NBA, you had David Griffin coming out last weekend about comments about LeBron in a Sports Illustrated article. David Griffin missed the opportunity to really make a insightful and just a tremendous point in regards to results and versus process versus results. So the article basically was supposed to be about David Griffin, and his transition now to being being back in the mix as far as running a team, and his struggles and some of his tribulations in regards to his wife, and it was supposed to be a nice feel good piece from that standpoint. But he decided to invoke the name of LeBron James, and anytime you invoke the name of LeBron James in anything you talk about or tweet, that's what's going to be. That's what we're going to talk about. Whatever quotes are made. Those things are going to stand out beyond what the article was initially supposed to be about. I thought David Griffin made, like I said, a tremendous point in regards to about being consumed with the finish and results versus the process and the journey. Like he said, he was basically miserable because of it was championship. Everything every year with LeBron James was championship, 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 versus him wanting to build a team, develop talent, draft who he wanted to draft, trade for who he wanted to trade for. Now, David Griffin could have made that point without throwing LeBron James, under a bus. When you come out and say something like, when you come out and say that, make a statement that LeBron James gets all the credit, even if it's like, even the statement LeBron James gets all the credit and none of the blame, that's what we're going to talk about. That's what's going to stand out. I think David Griffin, I think there's something to be said to, LeBron James commanding a lot of attention. LeBron James commands a lot of perks. He commands, um, your organization as a whole. But at the end of the day, he wins. And somebody from the outside in will look at that and think David Griffin rather lose and build a team rather than having LeBron James and winning one championship and going to 4 straight finals. So, or 3 straight finals. I don't think Griffin was there the last. Well, he was there last season. LeBron's 2018 season, when Kyrie wasn't there. But the point is, Griffin, Griffin had an opportunity. He wasted an opportunity to really push something that doesn't get talked about enough in regards to process versus results. And it's something that me personally I've tried to invoke in my life, even with this podcast, not getting consumed by subscribers or views, and not just hey, if I get 10,000 views, then what? Or if I get because what happened is you'll never be satisfied. It'll never be 10. Even if you get 10,000, cool. Then you'll be like, well, what about 15,000? Well, what about 20,000? What about 50,000? What about 100? It'll never be enough. It'll never be enough. That's why you have to enjoy. I just enjoy creating content, and if you mess with it, you do. If you don't, you don't. Because you'll never be satisfied. It's like chasing. It's like being obsessed with money. There's always going to be somebody with more money than you. So I understand totally where he was coming from the standpoint of, you know, the consumption of, or that expectation of a championship took away his love of of wanting to put together a team, wanting to build a team, wanting to draft and develop talent. Because general managers, yes, they want to win. But they general managers are builders. They love to build. Like David Griffin is in heaven right now. He has a team. He has a young, hopefully a young budding star that he can develop. A bunch of young pieces, a number of draft picks. He, excuse me, he has the ability to. This is his palette. This is it. This all. This has. New Orleans has all his fingerprints written all over it. He can build. He can do this his way. When he was in Cleveland, it had to be LeBron's way, or Dan Gilbert's way. But there was a way for him not to throw LeBron James. Just make it seem as though as every make it seem that though you wasn't blessed to have a player to be general manager or vice president and have a player like LeBron James, a once in a generation player, maybe a once in a lifetime type player in your franchise on your team. And it was a little theatrical as well. Like when he found out that LeBron was returned to Cleveland, like crying dropping to his knees and crying. I'm like, that's a little extra. Come on, man. That's a little on the extra side, little on the dramatic side right there. You're gonna cry because of the pressure that you foresee coming with winning a championship. Like, I mean, my goodness. You know what would make me cry? Losing 60 games a year and constantly having lottery picks and looking up and seeing nobody in the stands. That would have me on my knees crying. Losing, that would be, Pat Riley once said, there's winning and there's misery. I'll take winning over misery. We talked about the Draymond Green signing for $100 million. Perfect deal for both parties. I don't think Draymond Green was getting $25 million a year on the open market. Even only now, keep in mind, it only takes one team. Only takes one team to go out there and give him that amount of money. But I just don't believe that. I don't think that Draymond Green. I don't think another team would have given him that type of money. I just don't. Um, with that being, the flip side is if he would have left Golden State, they couldn't replace him for what he does for that team. They're not two, three players that could do what he does for that team that would be willing to sacrifice offensively and to do all the things that he does around the league. So there's a perfect fit for both parties. Green finishing basically his prime years with Golden State. Golden State will be a threat. I don't think they're going to win a championship next year, but if Klay Thompson comes back 85 to 90% of what he is, I would not want to see that team in the first round of a playoff series. I just wouldn't. They have championship culture. They have that structure already in place. They know how to win. That team, Klay Thompson coming back healthy would be is a scary. They would be a scary out for the Clippers, for the Lakers, for any of those teams on top, Denver, Utah, whoever, or the top team, whoever will be the top teams in the Western Conference. They also have the ability to flip D'Angelo Russell if they want to. So I think that I would predict that within the next 3 years that Golden State wins a title in the next 3 years. I think Steph Curry will get one more championship. That's how much I think of their franchise, that they will be able to put the necessary pieces around their core. You have now Thompson, Curry, and Draymond Green locked up for the foreseeable future. They'll find another piece or two to put around those guys, and they'll be right back in the mix sooner than later as far as contending or and possibly winning a championship. Also, the other major contract extension signed was by one Tom Brady. Again, NFL contracts, you really have to, look deep into an NFL contract as far as the fine print. It comes out first. You saw I saw 2 years, 41 million. Then I saw 2 years, 70 million. In essence, this is a 1 year, $23 million contract for Tom Brady. He will be a free agent again in 2020. And again, you can't you the one thing again I hate New England with a passion. I hate the Patriots, but the bottom line is they have a guy on their team, a quarterback who has had the opportunity to be the highest paid player, the highest paid quarterback in the league, two to three, maybe 3 or 4 times in his career, and he's passed up on every single one of them for the better part of the better part of the team. New England's going to have $5.5 million of more additional cap space, so you can do a lot. You can get a starting player with that amount of money, add to the offensive line or whoever they want to get with that money. You have a guy who, again, could have could have destroyed his team's salary cap a number of times. All these top quarterbacks on his that are even close to Tom Brady are either the highest paid players in the league or amongst the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. He has chosen again to take team friendly deals. He gets an $8 million raise, but again, it doesn't hurt when your wife is worth in excess of $488 million. But even with that said, he still could have took more money. So you can knock the Patriots all you want. You can complain. You can whine, bitch, and moan. But the guy wants to win, and it's looking more and more likely. I thought when this came out a couple of years ago about him possibly playing the 45 that it was just an absolute pipe dream. Well, he just turned 42, and it's coming off a year where he was still a Pro Bowl caliber, above average quarterback. Again, it can end quick when these guys falling off a cliff physically or just from a skill standpoint. But as of right now, there's no end in sight to Tom Brady and the rest of the New England Patriot dynasty. That's going to wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal Podcast. As always, you can find this podcast on my YouTube channel, Real Deal Podcast, Stitcher, iTunes, Apple, iTunes.apple.com, Blog Talk Radio later on this evening, and a multitude of other platforms. I'll be posting it on Instagram and Facebook, and also Twitter. This is the Real Deal Podcast, telling it like it is with no apologies. Thanks for listening.